Hey Tool for Forza, this is Stalker, welcoming you back for the second episode of Friday Night Tours. After reviewing the last episode, I must admit that I was not satisfied with the work done. Firstly, the name was too long and now has been shortened. Secondly, I really wanted the series to be more of a podcast and less of a video of me driving a track. I was really hoping to capture more of the history of a track and provide much more useful information. That does mean you'll have to listen to me talk quite a bit more. Bummer, I know, but I'm hoping that the end result will be a much more interesting and captive venture. Also, sorry for being a day late. I experienced some major technical difficulties yesterday. So, without further ado, here is episode 2 of Friday Night Tours. Enjoy! We all know Canada is good for basically three things: maple syrup, parcels, and absolutely ripping Can-Am cars. But what are some of the most exciting race cars ever fathomed worth if they do not have a track to shred on? This is the history of Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, or as it's better known by, MoSport Park. MoSport Park was Canada's first permanent motorsport racing facility. It is one of a handful of circuits that have seen over 50 years of development without any major change to the track layout. In 1958, the British Empire Motor Club formed a development committee and began the works for a racing road course. The summer of that same year saw the purchase of a 450-acre parcel of land near Bowmanville in Ontario, which was currently occupied with nothing but farms. With land purchase and a real plan starting to unravel, it became apparent that another company was needed to help the complex procedure of building and operating the circuit. Enter MoSport Limited, the company to take on the burden and lend its name to the circuit. And by 1960, a track design was settled on by MoSport director Alan Bunting. The plans called for a circuit that would mesh with the contour of the rolling countryside. However, considerable amounts of land would have to be excavated to achieve success, and in one circumstance, an entire hill was practically scraped away and leveled. As work began the same year, a visiting Sterling Moss was presented the plans for the circuit. He immediately suggested a change to what would become Turn 5, and instead of having a carousel-like hairpin, persuaded the developers to create two separate, nearly 90-degree corners. Moss indicated that these two separate corners would garner a more difficult challenge, and the development party listened. The resulting Turn 5A and 5B are known as Moss Corner. The circuit was completed in 1961, but after some setbacks, the cost of the circuit was nearly doubled out of its $250,000 estimated price. The first race to be hosted was by Oakville Trafalgar Light Car Club, but the first major race was the Players 200, and the winner was no other than Sterling Moss in his 2.5-liter Lotus 19. Stock cars and Can-Am were the main attraction for the course in early years. Unfortunately, cost of construction, amongst other things, forced Mosport into liquidation. The circuit was purchased by a company called Cantrack Motor Racing, and their accountant, Harvey M. Hughes, would become the driving force behind the circuit until his death in 1996. Top Tier Motorsports came to Mosport in 1967 when it held the F1 Canadian Grand Prix. 58,000 spectators looked on as Jack Brabham took home the checkered flag. Mosport would alternate hosting of the Grand Prix with Mont Tremblant until the latter endured financial issues, which would lead Mosport to host the GP alone from 1971 to 1977. After the 1977 season, F1 moved permanently to Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. With the absence of Formula One following the 1977 season, MoSport Park was in need of a new series to take up the limelight. Enter Can-Am, arguably the craziest motorsport series of its time. Big engines and big wings was what Can-Am was all about. There was definitely no shortage of speed and horsepower in Can-Am, and MoSport would continue to host Can-Am until the late 1980s. Racing still continued at MoSport after the end of the Can-Am era. A half-mile-long oval was introduced in 1989, and the FIM World Superbike Championship saw 2 seasons at MoSport from 1989 to 1991. And starting in 1990, the Pirelli World Challenge began visiting MoSport. The Pirelli World Challenge still races there to this day. Developments of the track increased starting in the early 2000s. In 2000, the entire track was widened to 40 feet, and in 2004, a kart track was built. In 2011, 2 spectator bridges were built and extended over turns 2 and 7. Modern racing really started in 2013 at MoSport. The NASCAR Truck Series as well as IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship both began racing there. Both series still race there to this day. MoSport is a true cathedral of speed, a circuit that feels so fluid-like to drive on, and a circuit with deep history for motorsports. The circuit is 2.5 miles in length, and the current lap record is held by a 2008 Audi R10 TDI LMP1 and stands at 1 minute 4 seconds. Now, let's make our way on track, and you can see for yourself what it's like to drive there. Alright, so we're out here on track. Let's get this started. I'm in a Ferrari 312 Can-Am car for this. We'll get this tour started right now as we leave the pits. It's a mod car for this track, or for the game. It's pretty sweet. Not the best work, but I give it a solid grade. It's definitely fun to drive. Leaving the pits here, so we'll miss turn 1 for right now. You can really tell right off the bat this kind of the rolling, the contour of the track, how it meshed with the countryside, as they say. It just rolls through the hills and whatnot. Go through turn 2. It's a well done mod. I like all the grandstands and all the stuff surrounding as we go here through turn 3, all the RVs and whatnot. Comes turn 4 as we dip down here. This part is a little nuts coming in here to turn 5A. Here's Moss Corner. Almost blind coming up here. You get weightless right there. Easy to lose the back end of the car as you come up to another 90-degree corner. Then you have this really long straight. And again, just up and down. This course, big time elevation changes, and it's pretty cool. Especially when you're flying around here at something like Group C cars or even the Can-Am cars. Here through the S's. And on to the final turn, back onto this little mini start straight. So shall we get a flying lap here? I think so. We'll see how just see how fast this track is. It is a crazy track. Hard on the brakes right here. It's okay. A little bit too hard on the gas there, leaving that turn. These Can-Am cars are crazy. Oh, stay on. one more for good measures, why not? And there you have it. A couple flying laps around MoSport Park. Thanks for watching the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked it more than the first one. I liked the little history lesson that I gave here this time around. But as always, tune in next Friday, and thanks. Yeah, talk to you guys later.